Hello, my name is Kathy Joseph, and I run the YouTube channel Kathy Loves Physics and History, and it turns out I have ADHD. So I'm guessing a bunch of you are saying some version of duh, but for me, it was complete shock. In fact, before I went kind of viral on YouTube, I knew I was different, but I had no idea why I was different. And ever since I started to have an inkling that I had ADHD, I started looking up videos on YouTube, and I bumped into this wonderful woman who I only know as the How to ADHD lady because I don't know her name. And she was saying how important it was for people to talk about ADHD and what it means to them and how it affected them both positively and negatively. And for me, I feel like having undiagnosed ADHD was just miserable. And knowing what's going on in my own brain has actually been mostly a delight. And I'm still unpacking all of my bad feelings from not knowing what was going on with myself. And I thought I should tell my story. So as I usually say, ready? Let's go. Part 1, what it was like to have undiagnosed ADHD in childhood. I probably knew as soon as I got into school that there was something different about me, and I considered it something wrong. I couldn't focus, I couldn't follow directions, my handwriting was abysmal, my spelling was even worse, I couldn't do group sports because I couldn't follow the instructions, and I couldn't do individual sports because I had no coordination and still don't, to be honest. And so mostly I just wandered off doing my own creative, inventive Calvin ball things. My sisters are significantly older than me. They're 11 and 9 years older than me. So by the time I was starting school, they were applying to colleges, and my parents got very nervous about me getting into college. So I'm in first grade and they're nervous about me getting into college, and I'm flailing around not knowing how to focus. That school was totally not ADHD friendly. Like, they had this policy to try to keep you from losing things, that you had to pay a quarter for everything you lost. And my parents eventually got like, don't pay a quarter for pencils. Like, just let them go. Like, you don't need to get them back. Only your jackets and your socks and your shoes and and your backpacks and your binder. I mean, like, I was a regular customer at the Lost and Found store because I always lost everything. And so it was always a struggle. I can't process auditory information very well. And like I said, I had terrible gross motor skills, terrible spelling, all of that stuff. But I was and am incredibly creative and incredibly social and incredibly inquisitive. And so if I was in a class and there's class discussion, I would always chime in, even if I'd never read the book, and I could manage to make really interesting points. So the teachers either loved me or hated me. They loved me if they could see that I was interested, and that's exciting. And they hated me if they thought I could do the subject and I just wasn't doing the homework or wasn't doing well in the homework because I just didn't care. I wasn't respecting them. And so then they hated me. And yeah, they literally hated me. My sophomore, he was an English teacher, but he was my counselor, like teacher counselor. He told me that I was the laziest student he had ever had the misfortune of teaching in 20 years of teaching. And I was like, the laziest? I mean, that seems a bit extreme. But like I said, I could follow patterns, and the harder the class got, the better I did, because people cared less about your grammar and your spelling or whatever when you got to advanced math or advanced physics or advanced English. They didn't, I could type it on the computer and there's spell check. Bless spell check. Ah, the best thing ever. Those of you who are younger than me, and You do not know how miserable it is with life without spell check. It was really bad. I was so happy for spell check. But they mostly graded you on what you were saying. So finally I started getting better grades, although all of my report cards would have your grade and then a little paragraph about like, she doesn't do her homework well and she doesn't pay attention in class. So even when I got A's, I was still in trouble. And when I was 16, my parents took me to get tested and they said, you're great at patterns, your auditory processing is garbage. I mean, they didn't use the word garbage, but that's what they meant. And you have trouble recalling single words. And then they gave me this recall of number test. Like they repeat some numbers and you're supposed to repeat it back. And they would tell me the numbers, I try to repeat it back. And after a little while, they stopped and they said, what are you doing differently? And I said, I realized that the numbers are in a pattern. And they said, no, they aren't. They're not in a pattern. And I said, well, they are to me. I just realized that I could use my pattern recognition to help me with this problem. I imagined a number line, like a long number line, and I could see the numbers bouncing back and forth. And I could do so much better recalling numbers that they could tell that I was doing something differently. And I probably could do more numbers than most people who are neurotypical because I used my pattern recognition to help with my weaknesses. But I never thought of that as a good thing. I mean, even before in like elementary school, when I'm trying to learn my multiplication tables, I couldn't learn them. So I made tricks to remember them. And I thought, well, that's cheating. That doesn't count. I'm not good at math. I only do tricks to solve these problems. I don't just memorize it like the good kids who are good at math with no idea that like making up your own tricks to solve problems is good at math. And memorizing multiplication tables is fine, but it doesn't mean you're good at math. And so I should have known that I had an unusual brain. Like all the signs were there, but I'm not hyperactive. I mean, I'm hyperactive in my hands and I'm hyperactive in my brain, but I'm not hyperactive in my body. And so they just had no idea. Like, you don't jump out of your seat. You don't have ADHD. Part 2, what it was like to have undiagnosed ADHD as an adult. I get to college. I do better in college because there's no little report card underneath there. Although I once did get an incomplete in a class, and then they gave me a letter that said, you actually got an A, but you signed up for the wrong class. Just go to the bursars and they'll fix it for you. And so I have an incomplete in that class because I couldn't manage to get to the bursars. And I also was too embarrassed to ask a friend, like, hey, I'm having trouble with this. Could you go with me to the bursars and help me with this? Even though I was totally fine with helping them with their math homework or their science homework or whatever. It just never occurred to me that I could ask for help and it's okay. It blows my mind if you think about it. Like, I so handicap myself, if that makes any sense. And then I went to grad school in physics and it was fine until I got to research. And then suddenly I wasn't working with anyone. There were no set answers. And I just basically played a lot of solitaire. And then I quit. And then I didn't know what to do with myself. And then I got a job typesetting a math book for an engineer. And he liked me. And he's like, you have all these extra credits. We have this new engineering degree called engineering science. And you have to take a lot of science and physics classes. You can take just like a year and you'll get a master's in engineering science. So that's what I did. And I really liked taking it was mechanical engineering mostly. It was really fun for me. It was nice to go back to the concepts I'd learned in one field and see how it's used in another field with more depth. And I just thought it was really fun. I didn't find the research fun. That part, once again, if it wasn't short, I would have failed out of that one too. And then I tried to get my PhD in physics again. And then I got to research and played solitaire, and then I quit, and then I had a bunch of jobs that I got fired from, and then I tried to become a teacher one place that was in Utah, and that didn't work very well. And then I ended up back in California, and I finally got my teaching degree. And then I was a teacher for about 10, 11 years. And then when I had my first child, they let me teach part-time. And then when I had my second child, they're like, yeah, we don't want you back. Not part-time. And I quit and tried to write a book about using the history of science to explain the science. Part 3, how I ended up on YouTube. I just fell in love with the history of science. I love the history of science. I'm not kidding. This is not fake. I adore this. And when I heard about hyperfocus, I'm like, oh, yeah, definitely. History of science. Also Schmigadoon and history of science. If you haven't seen Schmigadoon yet, it's like a TV musical on Apple Plus. It's fabulous. Yes, I do have ADHD. That's how my brain works. Anyway, where was I? Oh my God, this is so ADHD. How did I not know? So I was talking to a friend. I was like, how do I get anyone to buy my book? And she was like, start a YouTube channel. So that's what I did. And I love having a YouTube channel. I love movies, and I feel like I make mini movies. At first it was like every week. Now it takes me about a month to 3 months to make a video. They're a lot longer now. I enjoy putting it together. Every time I add the images, especially because I always want to use original documents, I always learn something new. My scripts always get edited over and over and over and over again because I'm always learning something new. And I'm literally having the time of my life. I have never enjoyed doing something so much, ever. I literally want to do this till I die. I mean, that sounds insane. I'm so lucky. I found something that I can do that other people appreciate, that use my skills, and very few of my deficiencies get in the way. And so I started my YouTube channel 6 years ago, and it was slow and steady and good, and I was really feeling good about it when about 14 months ago, I had about 15,000 subscribers. I'm like, this is fabulous. And then I posted this video on three-phase electricity, and I was like, I'm disappointed. This one isn't doing so well. I thought it would do better. And then as the days progressed, it just went crazy. And so I think in a month, I went from 15,000 subscribers to like 70,000 or 65,000. It was bonkers. Part 4, what I learned from going viral. It was fascinating to watch the comments change because most of my videos were really old. So like there was the same video, I hadn't changed, but because I was more popular, people had different expectations for me. And one of the first things I noticed is that before that, for like 5 years, I maybe got one comment about me moving my hands, maybe 2. After that, it was like 10%. Stop flapping your hands. Cut off your hands. Yeah, mean, cut off my hands. Sit on your hands. What are you, an idiot? Only idiots use their hands when they talk. Like really angry at me for gesticulating. And then some of them were like, stop faking. And I was talking to people about how extreme these comments were. And they were all like, oh yeah, maybe some people just really don't like gesticulating. Just stop moving your hands. And I'm like, well, I can talk without moving my hands, but I can't talk and think without moving my hands. It just doesn't work. And everyone I talked to was completely flummoxed. Like, just stop it. Just stop being you. And I started to feel like that's what they were saying. Just stop being you. Still be the you that we like. Just stop being the you that we don't like. And with no idea that those two things are linked. I move my hands when I talk to myself. I move my hands when I'm talking on the phone. It's it. It is happening. I'm really sorry if it bothered you in a sort of visually disturbing way, although probably you didn't get this far in the video if it bothers you. I understand I can't take those ticking clocks. I take all the batteries out of the clock because tick, 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 tick. I'm going insane. So that's an auditory thing. If you have a visual thing, I sympathize. I'm sorry, but it's happening. The second thing was I got a lot more beautiful compliments, which was lovely. And it was funny because it was the same material as before. Like it'd be a 4-year-old video and suddenly the comments would go, oh, that was pretty interesting, to like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And I was thinking, it's not any different. And I had COVID at the time, so it was like in a fever dream of like, positive, negative, don't use your hands, ah. And at the time, I get an email from someone, Jeff Parisi, who makes these beautiful Tesla coils, inviting me to go with him and a friend of his to this museum in Washington State. So I go up there and I have the time of my life. But on the drive in, we're talking, and I'm talking about the history of science because that's what I do. And he said something like, you have the greatest memory I've ever seen. And I was completely shocked. I have never even gotten the mildest compliment on my memory. I always thought I had the worst memory that anyone had ever seen. And of course, I said, thank you. I also said, I've never been complimented on my memory before. And he probably thought I was joking because I could tell you all the stories in my book, all of them, with dates and sometimes direct quotes. Sometimes it's close to the quote, and I can make it into a good narrative story. Anything. It's like, stupid human tricks on the Dave Letterman show. Like, I just flip open a page, I can tell you that story. So I have great memory, but also ask me the name of someone I just met 2 minutes ago. It's gone. And then after that, their face goes. And I forget what they look like, and I forget what their voice is like, and they're just gone. And so I have this weird, uneven memory. It's not typical. So once again, I just started to think, wow, this one was clear. I think partially because it was a positive thing that was clear and different, not a negative thing. Not like you're the messiest person I've ever seen, or you're the most clumsy person I've ever seen, or you're the most distracted person I've ever seen, or you're the sloppiest person. You miss the most things. You lose your keys more than anyone I've met, or lose your wallet, or I lose everything. Everything. Like, when I lose my wallet, everyone else freaks out. When they lose their wallet, I'm like, yeah, I haven't seen my wallet in 3 days. I'm sure it's around here somewhere. Other people are much more nervous when this happens, but it's so regular that I can't freak out. So I was starting to think, I'm just not sure I'm neurotypical. And then I got a comment that said, I can't believe someone would be so lazy as to not look up how a name is properly pronounced, or something like that. And I at first almost apologized because I don't want people to feel like I'm not respecting their culture by learning how to pronounce their names. But then I just got mad and deleted it because they call me lazy. And like I said, some of the negative comments got way more severe after my channel got popular. Mostly it doesn't bother me. Oh, you don't like my hair, you don't like my voice, you don't like my... Okay, fine. But lazy, it just brought me back to when I was in high school and elementary school and all of that. No one had called me academically lazy since I started taking advanced physics. That was my cure. If you're willingly taking advanced physics, no one ever calls you lazy. It's awesome. Until this guy. And I was like, one, why does it bother me so much? And two, why couldn't I pronounce the name? because I'd actually looked it up on the internet. You can type out how to pronounce this. And I listened to it multiple times and repeated it multiple times. And then I still pronounced it wrong because audio processing, and I forget. I forget how to pronounce it. I cannot remember pronunciations. It just doesn't stick with me. Especially German. It's written like an English word, but it's pronounced like a German word. And I get it wrong a lot. And so I was like, wow, this is another clue that I'm not neurotypical. And that's when I started to look stuff up online. I found the How to ADHD lady, and I started to see more and more of like, oh, inattentive ADHD. That explains it. And the more I looked, the more it explained it. The more I was just like, yes, 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 yes. And at first I was like, okay, well, that explains that I'm not lazy, I'm not stupid, I'm just ADHD. And I was feeling pretty good about that. And then I finally got officially tested. And in the official test I did, you sit at this computer and they have a letter flashing on the screen. And you're supposed to hit the space bar when you see a letter, except if the letter is X. Then you're not supposed to hit the space bar. That's it. That's the whole test. And I tried my best to not hit the X. And I hit the X over and over and over again. It was the most depressing thing. It was like watching my brain break in real time is how it felt. Instead of feeling like, oh, this explains things, it suddenly felt like, oh, I'm not lazy, stupid, and rude. I'm just broken. And that was a terrible feeling to have. And then, I don't know how much longer after that, it started to occur to me that I wasn't broken, I was uneven. I was like, okay, I'm good at some things and bad at other things. That's better than broken. And then I started to think, but isn't everyone uneven? Everyone's uneven. Everyone has skills and everyone has deficiencies. It's just that when your skills are typical skills, then you're just like, oh, I'm just a person. And when your skills are unusual skills and your deficiencies are unusual deficiencies, things that other people can just try harder and do better on, well, then they don't feel so broken the same way I felt broken. They don't feel stupid the way I feel stupid. Although so often they feel stupid if they struggle with math or physics, which is a very common thing to struggle with. They still decide that they're stupid. And I think that's part of why I sympathize so much with people who struggle with physics, because I know what it's like to just go, everyone else in this room seems to be able to do this, and I can't. I must be stupid. And it's not that you're stupid, it's that it's taught to you in a way that doesn't work with the way your brain works. At least that's how I see it. And I'm not saying that everyone who struggles in physics class can be a major physicist. Just as I'm not going to be the most organized person. But there's tricks I can use to help me get more organized. There's tricks I can use that work with my brain to help me do these things that I struggle with. And there's tricks I can use to help people who don't get science to understand science and feel okay with it, feel comfortable with it. So maybe we can all feel a little less stupid, because I really don't like that word. I really think there's so many different kinds of intelligences. There's so many different ways to be smart. And I just wish society would just treat the diversity of brains a little bit better. Part 5, more reasons I love YouTube. Hi there, I wanted to add another few comments. See, usually when I make a video, I write a script. So here, script. So I don't miss anything important. But with this one, I was even tempted to make a script, and then I realized I just have to talk as myself. If I'm gonna be honest, I have to be completely honest and show what ADHD really is like without edits. I mean, except for when I cough or repeat the same thing or scratch my nose or something. But I wanted this to be real so people could really see what it's like. And therefore, I made a video where I wasn't really sure what I was going to say. And after looking at it and thinking about it a little bit, I realized there was a couple things that were really important that I wanted to add. The first thing is about what this channel means to me, because I did mention how much I love putting them together and how much I learned from that and how much I love making little movies because I love movies, and that's completely 100% true. However, there's more to it than that. For one, I love being in control of my own YouTube channel because I can just do whatever kind of story I want to, and it's fine. I'm not constrained. When you write a book, you have to curate it. You don't want to go off in too many tangents because the reader goes, oh, this must be important. It's in the book. And I wanted to be able to talk about stuff that wasn't so important, but I thought was cool. So I did videos about the history of the Nobel Prize and how the whole story about it that's you can find in many, many books is complete garbage. And it's a really cool story. I like that one. I did a video on like how the laws of thermodynamics are in the musical The Wiz, which I just think is awesome because, you know, connects to physics and musicals. And it's a great musical. Well, at least the songs are great. The movie is mixed. I have very strong opinions about musicals. And it's just so much fun. And like I did another one on, I was doing this video on Niels Bohr and the history of the Bohr model. And part of what convinced Albert Einstein and other people that the Bohr model was legit is it worked for these lines of helium and that were found in a star. And I just decided, okay, I want to get into that. I want to get into spectroscopy. How do we study the stars? And then I went to like, who discovered helium? And it was so much fun. It's this guy named, now I'm forgetting his name. It'll come to me. Oh, well, it'll come to me in a little bit. And he was fascinating. He just did in his backyard with this telescope that he made out of, I mean, he didn't make the lens, but he made the telescope out of paper mache. I mean, it's extraordinary. And then he started the magazine Nature. So, and ran it for 50 years. So like, not only did I get this great story, but I got this background of someone I feel like I can trust. I mean, I'm not saying he will get everything right, but I know from reading all the other things from him that he was legit and he didn't have an agenda. He wasn't trying to exaggerate his own importance. So Norman Lockyer. Norman Lockyer. I love Norman Lockyer. I'm sorry I forgot your name. Anyway, Norman Lockyer, fascinating dude. I loved him. It's the only person I ever read who wrote papers for like the science societies and would use like 4 exclamation points. He was awesome. I love him. And actually the Norman Lockyer Observatory in England, they play my video. They asked me if they could. I'm like, of course. Sorry, I don't have an English accent. It's just so cool. But all these side projects, sometimes they immediately lead somewhere useful. Sometimes they sit there for years and then lead somewhere useful. And sometimes there's just sitting there something interesting. And I can just do whatever I want to at whatever pace I want to. And I'm told YouTube likes it if you publish regularly, you publish short videos. And I'm like, that's great. I don't care. I'm doing my own thing. If it takes me 7 minutes to do it, that's fine. If it takes me an hour and 10 minutes to tell that story, that's what it's taking. It is what it is. And I always produce something eventually. I just need to make it fit me And that works so well with my ADHD brain. But then the next thing is the most important thing. And I'm a little mad that I didn't think of it last time. My favorite part of having a YouTube channel is the comments. Not necessarily the individual comments. I mean, yes, I love getting compliments. I don't really mind the insults usually. I love learning, new facts and new things to look into. And when I make a mistake, I like that people tell me, not over and over and over again, but like, I don't want to make mistakes. I'm glad all these smart people who really study that one subject will tell me, you know what, you made a little mistake here, you missed this connection, it's not really like this. But most authors get, I don't know, between 5 and 20 people reviewing their work. And those 5 to 20 people, they tend to be invested in you. They're invested in you personally or financially or both. And they read the whole thing. So they can't get as passionate about each little individual item and really dig into it. But with the YouTube channel, especially since it went popular, I get thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people reviewing this stuff. I mean, I think I'm up to 9.5 million views, which is bonkers. But also, like, how fabulous is that? How fabulous is it for me to be able to put my ideas out there in a form that inspires people and get feedback to help me format it a little bit better and a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier for my books. It's just amazing. So I have this one book, and then I've been inspired for a further 7 books, I think. 7? Yeah, something like that. And I was planning on making my next book on the evolution of wireless, from Sir Isaac Newton to Hedy Lamarr. But I realized I have so many videos that I want to do for that book, and that's going to take me years. So I kind of put it as my 3rd book, and now my 2nd book, which I have most of my videos done for, is going to be on the radium revolution, how Curie's radium and Einstein's equals MC squared changed our view of reality, which is going to be awesome too. I love all these things. And because I have ADHD, I can have that book and these videos and these videos, and it doesn't make me crazy. Whereas I think it would make a neurotypical person completely insane. Like, focus on one thing at a time. I'm like, bing, 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 bing. Fine. It's fun for me. I am having so much fun. And part of why I was so nervous about making this video is because I didn't want to jinx it. But I keep on finding that the more honest I am with myself and the more honest I am with the people I love, the happier I am and the happier they are. Part 6, my opinion on self-worth and ADHD. Oh, what was the next thing? Oh, and that leads me to my last thing. I've realized just really recently that I was being so harsh on myself because I didn't know what was going on. And so I was so frustrated with myself because I wanted my parents to feel like, not worried about me and, living up to my potential. And I didn't realize that trying to make myself fit into that mold is not living up to my potential. Not at all. The more I am myself, the more I live up to my potential. And the more I can do stuff that helps me out. For example, I am living in the house that I inherited from my parents, and my sisters and I are selling it in I'm leaving in a month. We're selling it later, whenever we can clean it up. And so there's so much organization and so much stuff to do with this. And for a long time, I would have a great idea or something I thought was a great idea, and I express it to them, and they go, well, let's think about it, let's be careful. And I thought, oh man, they think I'm stupid. They think I know nothing. They think I'm ignorant. And I would feel mad and sad and not want to express what's going on with me. And now I realized, no, they legit want to think about an important idea before they do it. And I don't. I can't, and I don't. And so recently I had what I thought was a great idea. And instead of telling them and getting disappointed, I wrote them an email. I said, this is my idea. You sit and think about it, because I'm not good at that. Come back to me. And if you like it, great. And if you don't like it, fine. Because I don't want to sit and think about it for a while, if that makes sense. And they did, and they were tentatively okay with it. But discussing it with them, I realized it wouldn't work out very well. And so I said, let's not do this. And I felt so much better. I'm asking them to do their skills, and I can do my skills. And you don't have to feel like you have to conform to be useful. You're useful just the way you are. There are people who love you just the way you are. And there's people who love me just the way I am. And the only person who didn't was me. I feel like a lot of people think, well, I cause so much problems that I need to be extraordinary to make up for it. And I think I felt that way. Luckily, I didn't feel that way with physics, because nobody was like, yay, you're doing physics. I felt like I had to take care of everyone else. And that's how I made myself worthy. But I don't. I mean, I'm good at it. It's nice to do every once in a while, but I don't have to prove myself. There's a bus. I'm moving to a quieter street. That'll be nice. Bye. I don't have to prove myself, because being different can be a pain. It can be a pain for yourself. It can be a pain for your friends and family. But society-wise, it's not a pain. It's great to have some people who are impulsive and big thinkers and can't focus on the details but can hyper-focus on certain things that they love. It can be really great as long as they know how to contribute with their skills instead of trying to contribute with their deficiencies. And I don't know, I wanted to add that because I figured if I was feeling that way, there was probably someone else who was feeling that way, someone else who was trying to make up for their behavior by, being a doctor, or winning a lot of awards or whatever. And awards are great. YouTube subscribers, it's great. But it's not what you need to do to be worthy. You're worthy already. You just are different. And that's beautiful, right? So anyway, that's all I wanted to add. I also wanted to thank my Patreons for joining and for putting up with me, because sometimes I'll go into my mental cave and not talk to anyone about what I'm doing. I mean, I talk to the people I see, but even the act of writing a little email just is it's too hard for me. So there's breaks where I just don't say anything. And it just happens. I'm trying to do nice things for them, but I think it's not, people don't join a Patreon because they want special gifts. They join a Patreon because they like the material and they think it's worthwhile. And so I've just decided I do what I can do, but sometimes it's erratic. So if you want to join my Patreon page and sometimes have me ignore you, I'm sure that sounds super great. There's a link down below. And check out my videos if you want to know a little bit about the history of science and you're not a usual viewer. Okay, thanks so much. And stay safe and curious, my friends. Bye.